Okay, Gabi, you should be getting in. Can you hear me, Gabi? Hi, Gabi.
Hey Chris, hi, how are you?
How are you?
Very good, very good. Good to be with you.
Cool. Let's just wait like a couple of seconds so you can start, so you can actually do for those 13 people that actually got in the on the real time. How's the weather over in Tuscany?
It is getting warmer actually. We had a surprisingly cold couple of days, like 20 degrees, and now we're heading back to the plus 30. So my kids are very happy.
Oh, I
Pool is
bet.
within reach again.
I bet. I would be happy in Tuscany with cool weather, a nice glass of wine. What else can you ask, right? Talking with
Exactly.
me, talking with Chris. So what
Exactly.
can you ask more?
What a beautiful Thursday. How's it in Sao
Yeah,
Paulo?
yeah,
How
I
are
know.
you guys? How's the
Okay.
weather on your end?
So I think we can start. Um, let me just say one or two words in Portuguese. So I'll get back in English and then we'll stay in English, okay?
Perfect.
Gente, a ideia é que o papo vai ser em inglês. Quem quiser fazer perguntas em português, façam aqui, eu traduzo em inglês. Mas a ideia é que as perguntas, eventualmente, a gente vá falando durante o papo, tá bom? I just told them, Gabi, that they can ask a couple of questions in Portuguese and eventually I'll translate to you, okay?
Tá bom.
Once again, thank you for your time. I know this you working and vacation at the same time and at home. So we've been trying to do this for a couple of weeks and agendas were very complicated. But the idea here is just to have like a conversation about what's going on in Europe and Asia and Brazil at the same time, looking at rewards and loyalty and relationship and clients. And I don't like this thing called new world or new normal or anything, but on the scenario that we actually live in Brazil and you guys went through over in Europe, and again, it's starting to happen again in a couple of countries as well. What's going on with the loyalty programs, with the relationship that companies are doing with their clients. So for people that don't know me, I own INDICO. INDICO is a relationship agency based in Brazil. Gabi's old partner, friend, INDICO and LoyLogic have been doing or trying to do business for the last probably 6 or 7 years, right? A little less. Correct. Probably. But we became very good friends with all Gabi team, Martin and Daniel and Gabriel and all the people from LoyLogic. And LoyLogic is one of the major players in Europe and the loyalty scheme. Basically handle most of the big programs that we know around the world. Eventually, they go through LoyLogic in a way or another. So the idea is here just a nice conversation about what's going on. So tell me a little about your view of what's going on in Europe now.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, we were a little bit ahead of the curve with the when COVID broke here. So I'm not sure if that's a good or bad thing, but basically we saw it first in Italy, where I'm now. But of course, our company is headquartered in Zurich, in Switzerland. So we work with some of the biggest airline loyalty programs in the European region and also in the Middle East. And so what we've seen, of course, that industry, which I'm sure is exactly the same on your end, was hit hardest and fast, right? With like 80–90% of their regular business disappearing for a while. So how do you then engage your frequent flyers in those times while basically the core product is not there, both from an earning perspective in the loyalty program, but also what do you do on the redemption side? Because a lot of these programs, of course, have the vast majority of the redemptions goes to air redemptions for airline seats. But if that's not available, then they gravitate, of course, the members towards more the non-air redemptions, which is not necessarily a great thing for airlines in this particular environment, because it means cash out for them. They have to pay for these rewards. while they're flying. So that was definitely a lot of headaches for a lot of big programs, not just here because we don't just work in Europe, we also work in the Middle East or in the US with programs in multiple industries. What was interesting, what we've seen is that the airlines, especially the airline executives who always knew that loyalty programs were kind of needed, but maybe not always fully aware of the financial importance of the loyalty business for the airline. That has been a very interesting development there, because a lot of let's look at US programs, for example. If you look at United Airlines, or if you look at American Airlines or JetBlue, a lot of them have used their loyalty program either as collateral in the bailout kind of setups with either the government or other financing parties, because it's such a big revenue generator for these programs, for these businesses. But also a lot of these programs have had advance payments from their co-branded credit card partners, so sometimes to the tune of $1 billion pre-funded miles purchases by these kind of partners. So yeah, it has been for that industry very difficult time, some very creative solutions, and we think it probably is fundamentally changing some of the dynamics in airline loyalty. That we think that it will be the only thing that will be important for that industry in the coming period is how to sell more miles via all kind of creative solutions and technologies. So we see a lot of interest in these kind of solutions or that we're either offering or are in discussion with those programs. Or how do I redeem my miles as cheap as possible for non-air redemptions to keep my members engaged, but not seeing the money go out of the door necessarily. So that's just one industry example, Chris.
But let me ask you something. When you look at your other clients, such as consumer goods or, well, hotels are in the same problem with as airlines. But when you look at insurance, other clients that you handle in Europe and around the world, when you look at insurances and consumer goods and other industries, do you feel, because this is something that I'm feeling actually in Brazil, do you feel that they understood finally that eventually, and let's not go into loyalty as a reward or point program, whatever, but do you think they understood finally that creating a loyalty platform, a loyalty scheme, or a loyalty engagement process is the only way to survive in the near future or not?
Well, I'm not sure if I can put it that bold to basically say if that's the only way to survive.
I know. I did exaggerate a little.
No, but basically what we have seen, especially in the fast-moving consumer goods industry or in the CPG industry, there we see an accelerated shift away from traditional advertising, because that was already going on, because they were, of course, losing their effectiveness to somewhat. So there we do see that the loyalty programs are all going fully digital, that they are far more important than they ever were for the FMCG and CPG brands. So we work with a couple of the really biggest A brands from some of the, like the Procter and Gamble's and the Nestle's of the world. And there basically we see an increased uptake also in the COVID period right now. Basically CPG, of course, has been far less affected. Actually, on the contrary, basically people were buying more in depending on which product category you happen to be in. But yeah, there we saw an increased participation rate. One of the other verticals that we work with, you touched upon insurance, there we've got quite a few clients now in the digital health category. So basically rewarding people for healthier lifestyles, for number of steps that they take or hours they sleep or these kind of things. And that is very often linked to insurance companies who want to encourage people via well-being type programs and platforms to live healthier lifestyles, because it simply is kind of also an economical benefit, of course, for these kind of companies in there. That we've seen also picking up tremendously. So health, of course, is front and center in a lot of people's mind right now, on businesses, but also on consumer level. So we see a lot of interesting reward propositions popping up, and we're also involved in a number of those in a bunch of markets around the world.
You said something really nice, because eventually we always had as people that work in the industry, you guys in Europe and Asia and US, as in Brazil, a lot of friends here on the live, but we always had huge problems and difficulties in proposing loyalty schemes that they were not really based on transactions, right? Because it's always easier to get the money from a transaction. The guy spends $100, I'll give him back 50 cents or $1 or whatever. When you go to projects, as you just said, reward the time you sleep, or reward how many exercise you do, or this is a indirect way of getting more money, right? If he sleeps better, he eats better. If he exercises better, he'll use less my product or more. If I'm insurance, he'll use less my insurance. If it's a consumer good, he'll eat better, so more expensive foods or whatever. So do you think this mindset, it's something that was really coming before the COVID and was actually accelerated after or during, or is something that COVID didn't really made any change?
No, that probably has accelerated it somewhat, but I think it was a trend that was already also starting to exist before that. Like these well-being platforms, they're gaining a lot of popularity for especially insurance companies, and of course, there's also kind of a business case behind it there, because of course in the end somebody needs to fund the loyalty program or the rewards or whatever this engagement, so there needs to be kind of the business case behind it there. In that industry, it's a very clear-cut business case. Either you've got healthier consumers or you got healthier employees if you basically all offer it via well-being platforms for companies. So that basically we've seen to accelerate, but it was also a bit of a trend that had already started before. And I'm not sure if you see the same in Brazil, if you see a lot of these kind of well-being platforms coming up or not. Would be very interesting to understand a bit more how the Brazilian market looks like and what you guys are seeing there.
I just think there's two different things here. One is a trend. Okay, it will happen. It will be huge. It will be important. And the other things are like the COVID moment. Okay, let's really put some well-being platforms or change the way we do loyalty. But eventually, some of those things will probably fade away. Eventually, right? Because people will get back to their lives. I don't know if normal back, new life, but people eventually will get back to a way of living, right? Mm-hmm. And the human being usually have a memory problem, right? We forget bad things really fast. So said that, what do you think would actually be the things that are going on now that will be solid on the near future? Example, I think in Europe, this thing of well-being is probably harder than the US and, bigger than in Brazil or US. I think Brazil is actually a little bigger than the US as well. But will it give a step back later on or not?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think there's some kind of things that are fundamental.
Okay, I think he's okay.
For a second, Chris. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we didn't hear you, but
okay, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, your question basically repeated like one more time because I lost you for a second, Chris. Very
no,
sorry.
I'm just saying that even Thiago Martini wrote something like that here. This loyalty beyond the points, loyalty beyond transactions, loyalty based on this new whatever they like to call. Some of them were basically trends, right? It will happen and it would be happening at any moment. But some of them I think are just like, a balloon that's going on the air and it will blow up later on and nobody will ever remember. Bobrix even asking if like benchmarks of things that you really think it will be perpetuated after who knows when.
Yeah, so, well, of course, in the travel part, we definitely forecast that kind of business travel will remain also affected post-COVID. So basically there we do think that kind of people are finding out now that it is possible to work from home, it's possible to have distant meetings. And so that basically will not rebound probably as fast as everybody hopes or thinks. I think if we speak to our airline CEO kind of clients and relationships and customers, I think that is also setting in a little bit. So for these kind of businesses, it's probably even more important on how do they design and evolve their loyalty programs to stay relevant. And there we've seen some of the programs that were very quick to jump and were very successful in that, immediately changed their kind of reward shops, etc., to reflect like, okay, work from home kind of offerings, or stay at home, or all these kind of things that basically are relevant for people in there. One of the things that we saw, which is interesting, because in the e-commerce space, you can basically break it down in, let's say, the top 100 winners and the top 100 losers in terms of categories who saw it affected. And so one of the things that we've noticed is that you can strike very interesting deals and partnerships on both sides of the aisle there, because the people that are benefiting a lot, because suddenly, like there was this strange example in Europe, you saw a lot of people suddenly buying bread machines, because everybody started baking bread in their houses rather than go to the bakery. So suddenly that was the number 2 in terms of increased percentages of in there. So of course, if you are a bread machine manufacturer, you want to ride that wave right now. You want to sell as many of these bread machines as you possibly can. And so you're probably open for an interesting deal to basically offer that to various kind of programs and all of that. On the other hand, if you are on the losing side right now, it was like, for example, sunglasses or golf bags or these kind of things. These kind of manufacturers are also looking desperately for great deals and great kind of distribution channels to offer them. So if you have got large databases that are looking for great offers, you can strike all kind of interesting deals, either on the winning side or on the losing side right now, for the benefit of the for the consumers, right? So what we've seen in Europe is that the programs that are very agile and basically can jump on these kind of trends and have got good finger on the pulse and good partnership networks, or work with right kind of partners, could really stay very relevant for their members. But there's also plenty of programs and businesses out there who are a lot more corporate and slow, and they suffered a lot because they couldn't really adapt that quick. A lot of them were also struck by kind of simply, a lot of the travel programs went to maybe 5% of their staffing level still in the office, right? They furloughed a lot of people. So it was not easy to even send out the most simple email campaign with offers to their members. Yeah, so it has been an interesting couple of months here right now. In Europe, of course, things have calmed down a little bit, but you still see some nervousness in various markets. So somehow basically certain regions or countries go back to yellow, code yellow or code red, and then suddenly no travel can take place. So it's still it's recovering, but still fragile. Italy is doing quite well. Spain basically got some regions again in kind of danger zone. So yeah, it varies a little bit by country.
Let me try and put here 2 questions that they don't match, but I'll try to make them match actually. Bobrik asked if we have, like, if you could tell about any benchmark on a really good well-being program. And at the same time, I remember when I met you guys many years ago, one of the things that I always like about your speech was the power of choice. Right? So we always, LoyLogic always said, the thing is to give the customer choices and the power of choice that makes the program different. How does this power of choice today, on this next couple of months and the couple of months backwards, is going on? Does it really matter today? Is it important today? That's the first one. And the other one, if you can give any benchmark about well-being programs, in your opinion.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So if you look at kind of the power of choice, basically, so our fundamental belief has always been that kind of if you offer members choice in a program and you give them a wide variety of what they can redeem for, it can be merchandise, gift cards, experiences, travel, whatever it may be, sweepstakes, all these kind of things. Basically, it will drive their engagement, and that, of course, then drives the overall performance of the program. So that has always been a bit of a fundamental belief, and we've had many different kind of solutions in play for that. And so what now, of course, a lot of these loyalty programs become a lot more savvy on how do you manage then the cost per point for these kind of this different kind of offerings in there. So we call that smart CPP management, smart cost per point management. And so we have seen that there's a tremendous interest and activity in that part. So as an example, we run some programs where we've got, it's called a play solution. So people can play with their points for all kind of sweepstakes. They can buy kind of tickets for 300 points, 500 points, 1,000 points to win all kind of prizes. And that you basically can structure in a way that it kind of has got a lower cost per point for the program. And so what we're trying to do with a lot of the clients is that create solutions where they've got more members engaged at a lower weighted cost per point. And that's where the power of choice also comes into play. So power of choice means different things in different kind of markets. So if you talk about FMCG programs, they tend to have a much lower earning potential, right? Because how many kind of products do you buy per year of a certain either beer or diapers or coffee or whatever it may be. And so you need to be quite creative in what kind of rewards can you offer that maybe give people just simply great access to particular deals. And so there's a variety of offers that we've seen that are being deployed there right now. And I think to the second part of your question on what are the most well-known and successful well-being programs, so I will give a bit of a mixture of programs where we are involved and where we're not involved. So basically that I'm not basically too biased in there. But basically you have the Vitality program by Discovery, of course, is a well-known platform that originated from South Africa that basically set that trend a few years ago. There's now a very big program rolled out by Aon, which is called the Well One program, which basically is going to be a big global program targeting all kind of more employee-based participants in there. There's a smaller market, but a program like Irish Life in Ireland is highly successful. So basically, they got a very large proportion of the country participating in these schemes, not just open for their own customers, but also for the average Irish citizen, but then basically differentiated access to different parts of the program. So if you are a member of or if you're a customer of that insurance company, you got more access than if you're not a customer. But these guys are experimenting a lot with very interesting propositions. Yeah, so those are a couple of examples of programs that are taking off very well.
And how do you and I mean, we've been doing this for a couple of clients here. We're trying to make a shift from traditional schemes to more non-traditional schemes, right? The easiest way is always go behavior and go to social and go to how many videos you share, and it's much easier technically speaking and communication wise. But when you put on your table three different things, purpose, I mean, what's my brand here for? How can I help the world, or how can I help you, or how can I help my employees, or how can I help my community, or how can I help my society? We're trying to bring a little of those components into earn and burn. At the same time, because of what's going on, well-being is really, you know, the ball on the table now, and people want to know how companies are really helping well-being, and are going to help me not to get COVID or a flu or H1N1 or whatever. And the other one is actually being able to say that there's a shift in transaction as well, right? People are going to e-commerce, people are going to different channels. Channels are changing, so we need to change at the same speed. How? Two questions. how do you actually see traditional companies such airlines and hotels and banks making that shift? And the other one, is it possible to make the shift really quick?
Well, if you look at traditional large programs like the travel or the payment industry, there's a couple of different, of course, realities facing them there. So we see some of the programs that are traditional frequent flyer programs are in an accelerated pace to go to lifestyle-based programs, to really go more to basically playing with earn and burn propositions during those kind of moments. The reality, though, is that kind of cash is king right now for airlines. So and since a lot of their kind of profits are somehow tied to also kind of paying back dividends to the airlines, for example, for these big financial obligations that they have had to undertake. It's really about how can I sell more miles, and so that's where points retail comes into play, or how can I look for solutions to find new earning partners where my members can earn points, or how can I save a lot of cost on my traditional reward shops and running it in a different way. So that's more the mechanic there, what we see there. In the payment vertical, I'm not sure if you see the same in Brazil, but here in Europe you see a lot of very strong neobanks coming into play. And the neobanks, of course, well, there's another element there, that interchange is going down everywhere. So it's super much under pressure. And that has always been a traditional funding source for a lot of the co-branded credit cards or for the loyalty propositions. And that's also, of course, touching the travel industry, because it was always an important source of income. So there you see new loyalty propositions popping up, and so like companies like Revolut basically have just launched a very interesting proposition where it's much more partner offer focused, rather than which basically will not be funded necessarily by interchange or by the neobank itself. So different earning models, different economics sitting behind that. So we're very interested in that space. We're looking at a lot of kind of new innovations in that space as well that we're rolling out. We think that consumer spend will slow down simply because of the recession. So also these card programs are double hit with less interchange and also less spend. And what is very hot right here in Europe and also in Australia, for example, other markets, are these buy now, pay later concepts. So you've got a brand like Klarna, for example, very popular here, that also raised, I don't know, about close to $450 million quite recently. And so basically this is where especially younger consumers are buying something now and then pay in 4 installments, 5 installments, and very smooth kind of digital experience. And also these kind of players are coming up with interesting loyalty propositions. So in the payment industry, a couple of things therefore are affecting the traditional programs. In Europe, you don't have too many banking loyalty programs anymore in the traditional points sense, because the interchange already dried up a couple of years back. But you see very new interesting loyalty propositions popping up around partner offers, access to deals, these kind of things. And so that is a bit the landscape for these two industries.
When we look at here, well, that's my personal opinion. That's not really, probably not the general opinion in the market. But when we look at partnerships in Brazil, and that's, again, is my personal opinion, it's very hard to be differentiated, because if you go to a big retailer, he'll give the same discount to anybody that actually knocks his door, right? So if you're bank ABC, or you're an airline ABC, or whatever program you are, and hey, want you to sell to my base here of clients, yes, what's the discount? It's 15%, 10%, whatever percent, and that will go all across all partners. So I think it's very hard actually to be differentiated in Brazil, because this partner part is something that was established for a long time already. But that's a problem, because as you said, interchange is going down and expenditures going down, and a lot of new players in the market, so you don't concentrate your expenditure anywhere else. So it's kind of hard to do that. Said that, how can we actually how can we rely more? And then that's another question. The question to you is, how do you guys actually manage? Because I think one of the greatest things we need to do here is we need to make the programs more data driven, right? The more data driven you make the program, the better and the more relevant you're going to be for your client. It doesn't matter whatever you offer. So if I know exactly what Gabi wants, and I can give Gabi what he wants, he'll be engaged to my program. So do you guys handle that database as well, or you rely on the CRM part of the client, or how does that actually work for you, most of your clients or some of your clients?
Mm-hmm. So it's a bit of a mix. We have some clients, basically, they have their own database, and basically we embed the right content in their various communication streams, and basically we help them, of course, to get the right content to their members. So for example, we just rolled out something called open time email personalization. So basically when somebody opens up an email, then it takes real time the relevant, let's say, 4 most relevant rewards for you based on your points balance, your location, your customer lifetime value, whatever kind of the indicators are that we've got in there, the availability of the reward. So it basically, there's some technology that sits in there that personalizes that. But in that case, we plug in our solution into the communication vehicle of the partners. Some other clients basically have fully outsourced kind of all the communication. So in that case, we have access to the full database. And then we deploy various of our solutions, and our communication team and marketing team then works with that. And so that is a model that we use. In terms of data importance, data awareness, one of the things that we work on, and that I think is a super interesting field, is that a lot of people don't look at the biggest expense item in the program, which is simply the points liability. And especially for FMCG industries, kind of it's a bit of a new territory. If you talk to the banks or the travel industries, they've got, of course, their actuarial models and their liability models, and they are pretty savvy in those kind of things. But for a lot of the FMCG brands, that is kind of a new territory. So how do you basically do your liability management, your accruals? How do you basically decide how generous to make your program, and how basically what kind of offers to send to your members? And so that is a field where we have combined our technologies right now with tools which can predict kind of, okay, I know that this is Chris, I know that his kind of predicted lifetime value right now is whatever, $69 for this particular brand. Now, if I send you a particular campaign, will your $69 become $71, or will it become $68, or basically what is kind of on an individual level, what's the impact on your customer lifetime value? And that we think is a very important field, because we can then decide, do we send you a sweepstake offer with a cost per point of 50 basis points, or do we say, no, actually Chris is value, we think that his lifetime value can go up if we send him a more generous offer. So then you can start linking your points liability investments via redemption offers or earn offers based on what the impact is on that lifetime value modeling for you as an individual member. So that we think is kind of something of great interest, and that basically is something also where we see a lot of need in the market to get savvier in that field.
But you said something interesting again. There's a couple of, well, I don't know, I cannot say it's a trend, but it probably is. But when you look at traditional programs here and even new programs in consumer goods or whatever, people are very concerned and they don't want to pay you more breakage. I mean, the end of the program is there'll be no more breakage. Breakage will not be revenues from anybody, right? If I'm a company and I have this amount of money that I'm willing to give to the client, I want the client to have it all, right? I don't want for the vendor to have a part of that, the money that's supposed to be to the client, right? So this liability management is getting really critical in here in Brazil specifically. So there's all this discussion about who owns the breakage, who handles the breakage. The breakage comes back to me as a company. I'll give the breakage back to the other clients. So if you're not a redeemable client, that amount of money that you're supposed to redeem, can I give to my best client and make him double his points or whatever, double his amount? Is this a trend as well in Europe, or no? Breakage still a reality in Europe?
No, breakage is still a reality in there. It's also an important part of the financials for a lot of the loyalty programs. And so basically some sit around 25% breakage or 20% breakage, and every percentage breakage point has got multi-million-dollar impacts, of course, on the P&Ls of the program. So it's an art basically. So if you want to, of course, decrease the breakage in the P&Ls, then if you have the right data in hands and you do the right things, that you can at the same time demonstrate, okay, yes, we decreased the breakage here, but we increased kind of in a way that I can also prove to my auditors and my internal CFO and all of that part on the lifetime value. Then of course it's an internal business case that brands can easily make. If you don't have that data in your hand, then basically it becomes a more problematic discussion internally quickly, because kind of we as marketeers, of course, we know that breakage means like a broken promise, right? For a consumer, you've given them some points, they will not redeem, they've expired or whatever it is. But yeah, we don't live alone in organizations. We live together with boards and CFOs and finance departments, and so the better marketeers have got a very good grasp of this liability management topic, and basically work together with kind of the finance departments and use that data to also make the right marketing decisions, because in the end there are also, of course, unprofitable customers, and so you don't want to basically put super generous offers either on. You don't want somebody in your program to get a lot of points, make one transaction, get a big enrollment bonus, and then basically make zero kind of transactions after that, right? So it is kind of it's definitely a much more number-driven game than when it was when I started 20 years ago in the loyalty industry, and so that's definitely a field that I would encourage all your clients and relationships and marketeers to look deeply in, because the models are super sophisticated. The bigger the programs, if you talk about these big couple billion valuation programs, of course they got breakage to the decimal point, right? They know they can say with great accuracy. Of course, now that is a challenge in COVID. It's like, what's going to happen post-COVID, right? Basically, are these miles going to be redeemed from air to non-air? Are there going to be big shifts, or are they going to stay the same, or is there going to be a huge increase in breakage? And it's even the ones that are most sophisticated are quite nervous about it. I spoke to a couple of airlines, and they were already asked for 8-9 different simulation models by their CFOs, and it's anybody's guess right now. So it's a hot topic.
Bobrik asked another question here, but let me jump in and put two things together as well. What do you think what will happen, and I don't want to forget Bobrik's question, but what do you think would happen with the big coalition programs? On the past, we'll see consumer goods and small brands going into coalition programs because it would be cheaper, easier, no technology investments, and so it's easier for me as a Dolce Gusto or Nespresso not have my own program and eventually go into this huge coalition program. It's much easier. At the same time, technology got cheaper, wider, and the knowledge of loyalty programs is more spread around the world. So you see companies that traditionally would be inside the loyal coalition program building their own programs because it makes a lot of sense, even though they can sometimes partner with other companies, but it makes a lot of sense for me to have eventually my own program. Again, I have a very strong position about coalition programs in continental countries such as Brazil, US. I think it's very hard for them to maintain successful as they were 10 years ago. Eventually, they will continue to be successful in New Zealand or where you have like competition is smaller. But what are your thoughts about coalition programs? And then I'll go back to Bobrik's question.
Yeah, sure. Well, now I've definitely got an opinion on this topic. I've been a CEO of a coalition scheme for 8 years in Northern Europe, so I've seen kind of what it takes to run a good coalition scheme. My view is that I think the heydays for coalition programs are over. I think that basically they will struggle more and more. We've seen, of course, some examples like where kind of Payback started in Germany, then went, of course, to India, Poland, Mexico, went into the US under the Plenty brand. But that basically, of course, did not have a great ending there. I know, of course, you got in your market Dots, you got like you got programs like Nectar in the UK and in Italy basically struggled in there. I know firsthand it's extremely difficult to run a good coalition because first of all, you need to make sure you put your ecosystem in such a way that you manage kind of the CEOs and the CMOs of those different kind of hopefully non-competing brands very well. So they need to really feel kind of that it's a well-balanced proposition, that the data access rights need to be well arranged, kind of the campaigns. But like you said, with more digital solutions coming in the market, the big, especially like if you look at FMCG brands or so, they're very brand focused, and it's very often also a matter of highly procured, well branded kind of propositions for their own brand, where they can also put other elements in there. Because if you join a coalition, you give up some influence on the brand positioning, right? Basically, you have to build the brand for the coalition. You have to basically, and so it is not easy for brands in a coalition to have the same brand prominence as they would have in their own program. Of course, the economics have always been super interesting from a consumer perspective, because it's just simply if I spend my entire household budget on a bunch of connected brands, and I can simply afford a bigger reward, and therefore that has always been the main storytelling, which is true. Why coalition programs should win. The underlying kind of the coalition, there's only a handful of successful programs, I would say. Like Payback runs it very well in a number of markets. And that's because they understand how to basically keep the balance between the partners and the retailers, make sure that people are not... airline programs are a good example. Basically, a lot of them have got, of course, extremely large databases. But if you are a partner in such a scheme, you maybe get like 2 campaigns per year to a segment of the database, and then basically you need to praise yourself lucky, right? Yeah. And so you basically got less flexibility, less kind of access to kind of do these kind of campaigns, and if you have your own, so there's kind of trade-offs in there. And I think more and more, so unless you organize yourself as a coalition scheme or as a big frequent flyer program to really think about how to be a great partner for your program partners, and that's not just on the economics, but also how can you run kind of campaigns when people have had at least one transaction with you, with that particular customer in the database? Are there special kind of... So I know in our previous kind of life in Coalition Loyalty, we tried to have all kind of rules where people could run their own campaigns if somebody had at least one transaction with them, and then basically they could have their own branded newsletters. They could send it out as many times as possible as they wanted. But then you also need to be able to unsubscribe from on a partner level. So because that's of course is always the fear of a coalition loyalty operator. If I start spamming people with it, with too many campaigns, and that would unsubscribe, and then basically my database becomes less valuable. So you need to also build your technology in such a way that kind of you can unsubscribe on partner level. You need to have a fantastic communication platform where people can opt into the various kind of vehicles. It's not easy. So coalitions, I think they have a difficult time ahead. It's not mission impossible, but it's definitely not the easiest route. I would say if you're now thinking to launch a new loyalty business, I would think hard about if it would be a coalition scheme, because they're hard to manage.
Yeah, I totally agree. Let me get back here to the question. One of the things that actually goes on is like it seems that we always trying to reinvent, looking at old things, right? It's hard for sometimes to stop and think new ways of doing the same thing. Why I'm saying this, because eventually cashback is coming back to the table again, right? Everybody's looking at cashback as an important way of eventually doing things. I don't know if in Europe, but I know US is very hard, and I know actually in Brazil there are a couple of things going on cashback. So I give you back 1%, 2%, 3%, and eventually that money is not worthwhile, because if you go out in a cafe and you spend €5 and have a 5% back, you do nothing with that 5% back, right? So it doesn't really matter. But eventually it's a trend. So I think the question here is retailers are just creating cashback programs, and I don't think it's the best strategy, and I think Bobrik is asking the same thing here. When you have a retail that you have a frequency of 4 times a year, and you spend 50 euros every time you walk in, and you give a cashback of 5%, you give back 2.5 euros for that person to come back in 3 or 4 months again. Do you think it's a solid scheme, or is just one of the choices that you say the clients can have? My question was actually long and not direct. Is it cashback one scheme that should be the major one, or should be one of the choices within a program?
Yeah, my view is it should be one of the choices in the program. Cashback basically does not build of course, deep loyalty with your brand, etc. in there. But of course, it's very tempting, especially in times of recession. Basically, cash is king. Basically, but it's so basically what we are deploying ourselves is you need to make it a closed loop kind of cashback. So there's we see with our kind of technology. So when people get certain kind of of course, a loyalty is also a certain kind of loyalty is also a way of cashback. Then we've developed our technologies in such a way that our partners can then also via card-linked offers kind of structures, etc. in there. They can only spend those kind of currencies within a certain network where basically it still creates a halo effect of the program for a branded experience when people use then that particular currency for maybe a partial payment to access to a great deal or whatever it is. So you need to design it in such a way that you then say, okay, well, these kind of brands will fit also my kind of brand, and therefore I want the cashback to be then spent only on these particular kind of merchants in my network. Because otherwise it becomes quite a transactional, it becomes more of a sales promotion kind of mechanic, right? It basically means a percentage of. That is not really long-term loyalty in our mind. Basically, that's more short-term loyalty. You can basically run that for a couple of weeks, and basically you'll see maybe some impact, but that's not. It's a different marketing tool than when we talk about longer-term loyalty. That's not really how we look at it. But of course, you see some of the brands out there experimenting with innovative cashback models. It's simple to understand for consumers, so the temptation is there. The longevity of the effect is questionable in a lot of the cases. So we have our points-based solution is something that basically we've developed where people, when they shop online with certain partners, they can pay with part of their points. Basically what we're more and more doing with kind of clients is that you cannot even pay the full amount in points. So basically you can configure it on the back-end side that, let's say you say 10 or 20% can be paid in points, which means that you get access to better prices than you would basically get in the public space, even better than on Amazon or whatever it might be. But on the 80% that you pay in cash, you basically drive people straight away back in the earning cycle, because we then basically, part of the business modeling is that we give you straight away some new points as part of that same transaction, so you can start earning somewhat on the redemption transaction. So there are all kind of little mechanics and twists and tools that basically you need to embed in the design of your earn and your burn proposition. And these two worlds start blurring more and more. So it's not so much anymore an earn proposition or a burn proposition. It's really how do you smartly design the right kind of offering, the right kind of mechanics, and then link it to the technology. And then back to my earlier point, how do you then decide how generous you want to be to customer A versus customer B? Do you maybe have different redemption propositions sitting for your higher tier members, where you invest a higher cost per point in the proposition? So it is very data driven, and so it's not a short answer to your question, but that's what we see happening in the space in the US and Europe and in the Middle East and also in Asia actually quite a bit.
And what's the we're experiencing now a micropayments strategy, something that you guys been doing for a long time over in LoyLogic. But we've been experiencing in the market now some micropayment strategies, right? So you can pay your coffee with the loyalty program, you can buy your bus ticket with loyalty program, you can actually go to McDonald's and pay for the ice cream with your loyalty points. So those micro payments, they're a trend. My question to myself when I implement that in some of our clients, my question to myself is how I understand that this creates a loyalty process of frequency. I can use my loyalty almost every day, so it's really something tangible to my life. But at the same time, because I use daily and I use for micropayments, I don't have anything that really changed my life. If I lose my loyalty program, I'll still have my McDonald's ice cream cone, and so, and at the same time, I'll not have my plane ticket or my hotel night or my TV or my watch or whatever. So, what's the balance of micropayments within those big strategies of loyalty, long term, mid term?
No, basically it's kind of, it comes back to that element of choice that we talked earlier about. So basically we've done a lot of research around consumers in various programs, what they really like. And interestingly enough, you can break down kind of the behaviors in like 50% are like value seekers. So they really look for kind of the best perceived value on their cost per point. And the other 50% are convenience seekers. So they just basically wanted to make it super easy to basically use their points as part of a couple of dollars off on their payments when they book a ticket or when they are going to the before as part of a micro payment. So it has a place in the mix, and basically there's a certain segment of customers that like it a lot, and they basically they will gravitate towards the micro redemptions. Very often you can also differentiate again, you can steer these behaviors somewhat by having different cost per points behind the scenes. So you might invest a little bit less in micro redemptions versus kind of the more core redemptions like an airline ticket or a hotel booking or whatever other product. It might also be an own product of an FMCG player that they want to stimulate. So it depends a little bit what kind of branded experience you want to drive. So yeah, we don't. They have a place to play in the redemption mix, but they need to be smartly structured.
Let me tell those guys around here something. We have about 6 minutes left, so I still have a couple of points to talk, but does anybody have a question that don't want to lose it? If they do have a question, please write down and be happy to ask. So while people are thinking about questions, we cover out a little about collision and choices and micro strategies and micro redemptions. Liabilities, but what's really the future of the industry for the next year?
From the loyalty program operator point of view, or from
from a loyalty operator, yes.
So the loyalty operator is kind of, I think the big trend we touched upon a little bit that already earlier is on the deeply understanding kind of your cost per point versus the lifetime value impact that you have on your members on the various campaigns. Most of these programs tend to get much more sophisticated than they've ever been in terms of the understanding also within the organization. So if you look at these big global FMCG brands entering into the loyalty space, with that also comes very sophisticated and robust finance organizations, and so they want to understand how these loyalty program currencies investments have an impact on the business. It's not just basically for the sake of just being nice to the customer. Basically, it's just hard business cases in there. So we see really kind of one of the big trends is the coming together of the actuarial loyalty models, the cost per point analysis, and then marrying that with very impactful marketing IDs, because in the end you still need to capture somebody's consumer, right? We can talk all day long about cost per point and all the dry stuff and the technology behind the scene, but if you cannot capture the imagination of a consumer, you cannot keep it simple in the user experience or in the digital experience when they're in an app interacting with your loyalty program or understanding the campaign, then basically it will lose kind of its effect. So I think that's probably where the biggest trend will be in the coming year.
Hi. I think
Chris,
we
are
had
we
like a
back?
glitch here. I think we had a glitch. But anyway, the time is
Okay, no
getting
worries.
over. Uh, I really want to appreciate. Um, we had about probably 100 people going in and out here with an average of 40 people. Good questions. I hope everybody could understand everything we said. Um, at the same time, I know your agenda is very complicated, and thank you very much for your time. We'll post the video if anybody can see, and if am I allowed to give your email if anybody want to get in touch with you guys and anything like that?
Yeah, of course, Chris. That would be, of course, my great pleasure. Thanks very much for having me online. It has been way too long since I was in Sao Paulo. Basically, I have a very good friend actually in your country who basically sent me a big Corinthian shirt. So I sent him an Ajax Amsterdam shirt in return. So basically, I'm not
That's
sure if
not a
that's the right club for you.
that's not a good shirt. Okay, let me tell you, that's
I
not a
thought
good
so. So you
shirt.
can send me. So what is the right shirt, Chris? Then.
I'll send you the right shirt.
Okay. Okay. Very good.
I'll send you the right shirt tomorrow, okay? And because that's not a good shirt. Don't wear that shirt when you come to Brazil. You're gonna be
Okay.
people are gonna throw
Very
stones
good.
at you. People are gonna throw
Okay.
stones at you.
At our next Instagram, I will wear the shirt that you will send over. So basically, I'll make sure to be properly dressed.
I'll send a new shirt. I don't know when next time that Daniel or Gabriel or Martin are coming to Brazil. I've been talking to them about some projects with them the next time they come. I don't know when that's gonna happen, right? We never know.
Yeah. So.
The new shirt and the old shirt.
Yeah. So we hope to see each other in person. Yeah. That's okay. Okay. I look forward to that. Yeah, and basically, like you mentioned, we are expecting.
Sorry, Gabi. You were expect.
No. I said we're looking forward. We're indeed planning to have a big kind of launch with one of our clients in Brazil next year. So we look forward to basically see each other in person, and hopefully then, yeah, let times be calmer and safer. So that's what we're hoping for.
Yeah, I've been talking to them, and I think it's going to be a great program here in Brazil as well. So